Alright guys, what is the crack? You are listening to another episode of the From the Depths podcast. As always, my name is Emmett, and you're very, very welcome to another episode of the show. So, this episode was so good and so nice, we had to record it twice. It was bound to happen at some stage, but me being an absolute tech phobe, I fucking lost the file for the first time that I interviewed these boys, and I had to go and awkwardly ask them if we could do it a second time. And I have to extend a sincere thank you to the lads for hopping on the second time and getting a chance to redo the interview that I did. And I am of course talking about the boys in the band Fraught. We got to sit down and chat twice over the last week about their new EP Splitting Tongues, which was released March 11th via both Cursed Monk Records and Fomorian Hate Records also. So you can pick that up on CD via Cursed Monk Records, and you can pick up the cassette, one of the few limited remaining cassettes, over at Fomorian Hate Records also. And it's freely available to stream wherever you stream your music as well. But before we get to that interview and before we get to my talk with the lads, I have a bit of housekeeping as always to do. If you are new to the podcast, if you've been with us from the start, or whether you've hopped on somewhere in the middle, you are very, very welcome as always to the show. If you want to support the show outside of listening, which is of course the easiest way and the most helpful way to support the show, you can follow us on both Facebook and Instagram too. On Facebook you can find us at From the Depths Metal Radio, and on Instagram it is at From the Depths Metal. And if you want to keep up to date with the show and you want to know when podcasts are coming out, when episodes of our radio show with Wired FM are coming out, if you want to talk a little bit about records, I share records on there all the time as well. You can keep up to date with all that crack on both the show's social media accounts as well. As well as that, I also host a weekly radio show for Wired 99.9 FM, Limerick's only fully licensed student radio station, every Wednesday at 8 p.m, simply entitled From the Depths. It's the namesake of the podcast. Basically, you just sit down there once a week, play a bit of what I've been listening to throughout the week, and we have a bit of crack on the air as well. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, Wired 99.9 FM, 8 p.m. every Wednesday. And as well as that, you can find old episodes of the show via our Mixcloud. That's www.mixcloud.com/From the Depths Metal. You can find all the old episodes of the show there as well. And as well as that, you can find a few live streams I did with Dave from Fomorian Hate early last year during the first pandemic also. So that's pretty much all the house. No, it's not. I almost forgot as well. We have gotten the nod from Trevor over at Cranium Titanium with the Irish Metal Award Polls 2021. We have been nominated for both Radio Show and Podcast of the Year. And although we probably won't win it because the podcast is only a few episodes in, if you want to support the show and throw us a vote and throw us the nod and everything like that, you can do so there. I have the link shared on both the From the Depths social media pages, and you can find it over on Cranium Titanium as well. But as well as that, a lot of Irish bands released a lot of great stuff throughout 2020. So if you want to go over and give some of them a nod for their hard work and stuff like that, I highly recommend you do so too. Particular nod goes to the lads in Tombs. It's mentioned during my interview with the lads in Fraught, but that Tombs EP, The Orb Offers Massive Signals, is fucking fantastic, and I really, really hope that the boys come out of it with Album of the Year, because that is an absolutely fantastic piece of work. Anyways, is that all the housekeeping? It's not. I got one more thing to do before we get into this week's interview with the lads from Fraught. We are running a competition on the show. On the social media pages. You can win yourself a free copy of the new Fraught EP, Splitting Tongues, on cassette. All you have to do is find the post on either social media page, whether it's on the Instagram or the Facebook over at From the Depths, and just like, share, comment and tag us when you've all three done, and I will announce the winner Friday night around 9 o'clock. And yeah, the cassette can be yours, and I might throw in something extra too. I've found one or two bits in the house, and if you win the competition, you're more than likely going to get those too. So that's all the housekeeping done. Like I was saying at the start of the episode, I'm chatting this week with the boys from Fraught. New EP, Splitting Tongues, available now via Cursed Monk Records and Fomorian Hate. And like I said, you can stream it wherever you get your music from. Yeah, lovely lads. Really, really sound of them to hop onto the podcast twice as well, considering my absolute tech fuck up. But sure, look, it has to happen once for me to know that it's going to happen, and it won't happen again. And thank God I got to interview a sound bunch of lads when it happens, do you know what I mean? But alas, here we go. Here's my interview with the lads from Fraught. They're good, man. They're good. Cheers as well for hopping on a second time. This is the first time I've had to do this.
No worries.
Oh, I felt like some girl, man. I was there, had the whole thing edited, ready to go. It was thrown up into Acast. And I just got this like email alert from saying that like the audio file couldn't go up. Now that's happened once before over size, and I was like, okay, maybe I just have to compress it a small bit. But then like I tried to open it up on my computer again and it said the file was corrupted, and I just thought, Jesus Christ, do you know what I mean? Like, but it
Yeah.
it wouldn't have been too bad. I recorded it with audio hijack. I didn't actually keep the recording from the Zoom call because you know I'm just fucking tit like, you know. But at least this time around now, do you know what I mean? Lesson learned. I'll have it kind of on both ends. So if one doesn't work out, I have it kind of saved somewhere else too, do you know?
Yeah, the old backup of a backup.
That's exactly it. Like, and I thought I had myself covered in that regard, like, kind of like earlier on with it and stuff like that. I just got way too relaxed with it, you know what I mean? Like, well, but your look, lesson learned anyway.
Yeah, that's it. Well,
That's
Mark,
it.
what's the crack?
What is the fucking story?
Round two now, like. Okay, cool.
We've had plenty of practice now, Mark. So
Oh yeah.
I'm flying form.
I'm equally as terrified tonight as I was the first time I did it, so it's not going to make a fucking difference. This is the new fight my gig. I'm still having a few beers beforehand, so every night's a fucking school night. It's grand.
I'll tell you a gas one. I fucking went about 2 months without drinking there, and just because like fucking I was drinking like a fucking fish and water throughout the lockdowns, like,
Yeah.
and I swear to God, I went to have a fucking drink last night. I had about 6-7 cans, and I swear to God, it feels like I'm after drinking 2 bottles of fucking Jameson straight. Like, you know, my body is just fucking shook. You know,
Oh, it just gets worse and worse.
Oh,
Same.
yeah.
I think I fucking after you Jesus stopped the recording on the first time we did it, and we carried on talking. I started opening more bottles, and the next morning I woke up and I said, "What the fuck happened? My fucking head is killing me." I was like, Jesus, I haven't had a hangover like this in ages, and I realized I hadn't drank that hard like in a fucking since the lockdown happened. I was like, need to do more podcasts.
And you know, that's the worst thing too then, because like I don't know about you, but like, do you know the way everyone was doing like those Zoom calls and shit for the first lockdown anyway? I was there and I was like, how the fuck is it possible to get the fear like when you've only been in your own fucking sitting room? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, how the fuck does that happen?
Well, we'll put that to the test anyway.
So here's the EP dropped today. What's the feedback been like since this morning? Like, have you gotten much feedback yet? Have many gotten a chance to listen to it, or?
Yeah, no, it seems to be doing very well. Like we got a couple of reviews and stuff in. We've just been kind of filtering through them for the day. Well, I know I have anyway. Yeah, it seems all positive. Seems like it's going down well. I think people are enjoying the fact it's not easily classifiable as black metal or death metal or whatever. So yeah, people seem to be enjoying it.
That's been the funniest thing, seeing people share it and everything like that. And every time it's shared, the genre just seems to change. Like 1 minute, someone saying it's black and death metal, the next person saying it's like flat out black metal, the next person saying it's death metal and everything like this. And I found that guess. I haven't actually gotten to sit down and listen to it. I'm still waiting for the tape to land. I ordered the tape. God, when the pre-orders went live off of Dave, I think was it 2 months ago now or a month? But I think
it was back in January. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know he's just getting them out today now and stuff like that, so I should hopefully have it now early next week, I'd say. Well, we might arrive tomorrow actually now, because the postal service kind of crack has gotten its shit back together now the last month or two, like, do you know what I mean? Because I tried to post something out there. We did a competition about 2 months back. Jesus, with the delays in the postal service, the person only got their prize. Like, they won it in December, they didn't get it to the middle of February, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So fucking hell, like. But I was just thinking there, I never asked you this there. This is hilarious now that I've even said this. The first time we tried this there last week, I never asked you, how did the band actually come together? Because you were saying there after we stopped the recording that, like, you know, I don't know, was it Mark that were you in Cold War before, was it? And Dave,
no, that was Dave. Dave was in Cold War and Morticnia, and I was in Warpath. But we had always kind of been playing gigs together, and we knew each other through that kind of scene there. So that it was handy enough. And I think it was actually at the Siege of Limerick. I can't remember which one it was, but I remember it was the one that Balls were playing at anyway. And Podge had came up to me after the gig outside the merch area, looking at all the Balder merch, and he had approached me about, like, you know, potentially sending a few riffs back and forth, and, you know, drum things, and he was doing this and that. And I said, yeah, no problem. And he was like, yeah, give me your email. I was like, what? Who goes through emails these days? Just give me your phone number or WhatsApp. Like, and but it kind of came off from there anyway. And I didn't hear anything from like another month or two. And he had kind of mentioned, like, I'm looking for this, that, or the other. Do you know if anyone's looking for a vocalist or anything, or do you know of any vocalists going? And I said, well, I wouldn't mind kind of giving it a go. I always enjoyed that kind of little bit of thing when I was doing backing here in Warpath, etc. Blah blah blah. And went in for a test run, and the rest is kind of history on that side. But myself and Dave have known each other quite a long time.
I think the very first band I was ever in, I think played with you a few times back in the Gut Wrench days.
Oh, in the Gut Wrench days, yeah, Jesus, yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I've known all the lads through various, I suppose, bands and different things throughout the years. Like I played in Wound Upon Wound with Garode and also with Podge, and then I played in Cold War with Andy. So that was how that kind of side of it came together. And as I said, Podge knew Mark as well as I did, just through bands and playing different gigs and Siege of Limerick and things like that. So it was quite natural how it came together. And from the start, we kind of said, look, this is what we want to do with the band. This is how we want to position it, like musically, that we're not going to be, stuck to in tradition, like in all the other bands. It would have been like, oh, well, this is a black metal band, or this is a death metal band, or whatever. Whereas for this, we said, look, whatever we write. And if we write 6 death metal songs and 1 black metal song, it doesn't matter. We can, pick and choose whatever way we want to release it and split them up whatever way we want to do, if it's for EPs or an album or something like that. So I think it was quite natural how it all came together in the end.
That was always the kind of more exciting part about it, that you weren't kind of boxing yourself into one genre. You kind of had the freedom to kind of say, right, well, we can play this, play that, and make that work. And but it's always kind of, as I said before, it's kind of an organic thing, and whatever we kind of come out with seems to kind of work for us. And it's always, it's just the joy to play. Like, it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, that seems to be the main thing. Whenever like you kind of go into it with an open mind and don't kind of instantly box yourself off, it leaves more room anyway to have the crack when you're writing and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Like you could kind of mess around a bit more and stuff like that too. Do you know? But how long?
I find though that's the best way to do it. Like, even just from myself, like my own perspective playing guitar, like I find when you throw all the kind of rule books out the window and you just write something that you want to hear yourself, that's the best way to do it. So like whether it comes out as a particular type of riff or not, it makes no difference. If you can always work it into some song at some point. It might not be the song you're working on at the moment, but you'll fit it into something somewhere. Like I think even the example it uses, the opening riff from Throne of Traitors, like I've had that riff sitting around for about 6 or 7 years, and it just never fit into the stuff I was doing before. So when we started this, it was a new avenue, and I said, here, I'm going to use this for a song and write around this riff rather than trying to fit it into something else. So yeah, it came together quite naturally.
That always reminds me, like what you're after saying there reminds me of that story of when Ian Gillan joined Sabbath, and they were trying to figure out like what they were going to do and stuff like this, and Tony Iommi apparently just opened up this black bag and 101 cassettes just dropped out of it, and he was just like, oh yeah, just work away with whatever you want to do and figure it out from there. Like, apparently 100 and something cassettes straight out of the bag with like 1,001 riffs in it. But how long was the turnaround then between you deciding to go ahead with Fraught as a band and that demo coming out in late 2019? Was there a long period of time between that, or because I can't remember offhand when that Siege was that Pulsar played? I think that was like 2017 or 2018.
Yeah, I think there was about the guts of a year anyway. Like I think we all made the decision, as you said, when we started, what we wanted the band to be and how we wanted to approach things. So from kind of day one, we said, look, we're not going to rush things. We're going to take our time, do things right, do things the way we want them. So that's kind of been the way we've operated. We've never kind of gone by anyone else's timelines. It's always been our own. So, when we started, we wanted to make sure we had all the artwork ready. We had, all the tracks ready. We'd pick the right studios. And even for the live shows, like we made sure that we bought our own lighting equipment. We got someone to do lights for us so that we could hit the ground running and have a full package that people can come and see, rather than a band that's just kind of itching to play. They write 2 songs and they're not really ready for it. We just paced ourselves, and we knew there'd be a point where we would be ready, so we were happy to wait until then.
Yeah, there's a point in time where you do play the two songs at a gig and you're happy with that, and you kind of that's like you just rush everything, kind of get it done. You write your songs, you would just want to gig and get it done, and that's what the early days are for. But this is definitely more planned out, and as you said, hit the ground running. We literally picked everything we wanted to do, and everything was kind of structured and done on purpose. So it's definitely more fun this way. More experience.
That's exactly it, Mark. There's more experience behind it. Like, you know, when you start your first couple of bands, you're kind of learning as you go. Whereas all of us in this band now, we've all been through it before. You know, we've been on various different labels. We've
Yeah,
done
you have to
tours
have that time though where you play them gigs that you kind of just run out and take what you can get. You know,
yeah.
you have to have that time where you make them mistakes, or you know, whatever. Not even make the mistakes, just kind of have that time to learn. But
The way I suppose I'd look at it is it's like building up a CV for a job. You know, you can't go out on day one of your first band and expect to, you know, support, I don't know, Slayer or something. You have to build yourself up. So that's kind of what we've done over the years in different projects and different bands, and it's just kind of applying all that knowledge now.
I still haven't supported Slayer.
Do you know something though? You can kind of tell that when like when that demo came out there over a year ago, like it wasn't a case of like a lot of times at bands, especially here in Ireland, when like, you know, if it is just a small 2-track thing like that, it's normally, you know, you might hear about it here or there over the course of a few months. But I remember that being pretty instantaneous. That was going around like mad, like, do you know what I mean? There was a lot of talk about that when it came out and stuff like that. And you can kind of see that as well with the hype that surrounded the EP, like in the weeks leading up to it coming out. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, there's very much been like an audience there and an audience who kind of like everything was presented so well. Do you know what I mean? That when it landed and stuff like that, I think everyone was kind of like, "Oh, what's this like?" Do you know what I mean? And it was great to see, like, do you know.
Yeah,
But
that was always the plan, was to make an impact from the get-go, like hit the ground running and have everything good to go, you know. I think definitely when we released the first one, it kind of it polarized some people in the sense that people thought, you know, the first release might have been too polished or something like that, you know, given it's the first release and normally bands kind of go with a demo. But I suppose we just wanted to show from day one what we were capable of, and then, you know, obviously with subsequent releases, this new one, Splitting Tongues, like we took a bit more time to find a sound that really worked for the tracks. So again, it was all deliberate and deliberately chosen that way. So
yeah, definitely think we found our sound with this EP anyway, as opposed to the other release.
And when did you start the writing process for Splitting Tongues then? Was that like, was it a case that you had stuff sitting by, like you mentioned earlier, with like, that you just kind of had riffs ready to go and you were structuring them from there? Or did it just slowly but surely kind of come about over the last few months?
I suppose from my perspective, I had a couple of ideas and sounds that I wanted to go for with a couple of the tracks. But when we got together as a group, the first thing that we all said we'd do was we'd play a couple of covers just in the jam room together to kind of remove that awkwardness of, you know, everybody gets into a room and you're kind of looking at each other saying, oh, well, what do we play now? And do you have a riff, or, you know, do you have a drum part or whatever? So we spent about, I don't know, 2 or 3 jam sessions just literally jamming out a couple of covers. And then from there, we just slowly started introducing the ideas. And I think I had, you know, the guts of maybe 2 songs done. Garode had a couple of ideas, and it was just bringing them all in then and working on them as a group.
Okay, cool. And who was it then that you actually produced the EP? I still haven't actually looked into that. Like, I was waiting to listen to it in full now. Like I said before we started with, I was waiting for my tape to listen to it in full. But who did you get to actually record it for you? Who produced the EP?
So the Splitting Tongues one we did in a studio called Hellfire Studios, and it's kind of up in the Dublin Wicklow Mountains there, near kind of the Hellfire Club. So we went up there and we got an engineer called Ivan Jackman to do it. So he'd worked with Andy before, back in the Slave Zero days. I think he did maybe 1 or 2 of their albums with them. And we basically just said, look, we wanted to try something a bit different. We had kind of a sound in mind. And we just said we'd trust someone else to do it, and see what we could do that would be a bit different kind of from the norm. Because I know a lot of the metal bands typically go to kind of Track Mix or Sun studios in the city centre, but we just wanted to try something a bit different and, you know, try and get our own sound. As we said, we knew what we wanted, and, you know, I think it worked out well to do that, because we could spend a lot more time kind of honing in the guitar tone or the drum sound or whatever it may be. Just, you know, it was a lot less pressurized, so we could just get what we wanted out of it, you know.
Mm-hmm. And listening back now to like the first release, when comparing it to Splitting Tongues, is there any noticeable difference now? Like, is there any difference influences wise, or anything between the 2 EPs? Have you noticed that yourselves listening back to them at any point?
Well, the new one, Splitting Tongues, was all recorded live. So we all played in the same room for that one, and there was no kind of overdubs or edits or triggers or anything used. So everything on that one is a completely real person playing a real instrument. And then obviously the vocals were done afterwards, but all the instruments are done live. So I think it has a little bit more of a kind of a raw and kind of more natural energy to it. Whereas the first EP was done kind of the traditional way of recording drums first, then doing bass, then doing guitars, then doing vocals. So it's a little bit more like the typical approach, I suppose. So I think that if you listen to the two of them back to back, I think Splitting Tongues definitely has a lot more of the energy we wanted to capture on it. Like the songs, I think are a bit faster overall, and just having that energy in the room, I think really shines through on this. And then obviously, as I said, we could spend a lot more time dialing in the guitar tone, the drum sound, and how we wanted the vocals to sit. Whereas the first EP was all done in one day, so it was a kind of a much more rushed affair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, the Splitting Tongues EP kind of has that same energy that we would have when we're even in the studio, like kind of practicing. Like, it still has that raw kind of feel to it that I could imagine that we're still in the same room playing it, Whereas when I listen to the first two songs that we ever recorded, it's like a high end polish on it that like kind of, not that I don't like I do like it and it's great, but yeah, long and short of it, I do prefer the new EP to the other two songs.
Did you find it harder? Like, would you find that there was more pressure playing live together like that recording, or which did you find easier? Did you find it easier to record separately or to record like jamming live together, like you just said there?
No, jamming live together 100%, man. Well, me personally, anyway, definitely.
Yeah, I think it suits it a lot better, especially for this set of songs. And like it made it feel more like the way we play it, in the rehearsal studio when we're just kind of jamming it out. Like obviously, depending on some songs, sometimes it suits doing it in a more kind of structured manner, and sometimes it doesn't. But I think for these ones, we all knew like we'd rehearsed them for, I don't know, about 9 months, a year before we recorded them, so we kind of knew exactly how everything would flow together and how the parts would fit. So
just like playing live captured the real feeling of the band, and it goes to it just shows what we do. It's deadly. Like, it's, I don't know, very proud of it, and it's very cool to hear back on an album that, like, how we sound. I don't know, just I enjoy listening back to it, and that says something because I'm very picky with things that I listen to.
I think it captures more of what we'd sound like at a live show as well.
Yeah, like all I've heard from it now so far is Fractured, like, and that was absolutely fantastic. Do you know what I mean? And you can noticeably hear the difference between that track and the two tracks from the first release as well. I'm looking forward to hearing the whole thing in full, though. I should have actually streamed it now or something like that before coming on to talk to you. I've been a bit ignorant now, but I had kind of romanticized the thought in my mind of that tape arriving and have a few cans listen to it the first time. Do you know what I mean? Because I absolutely loved that first release. I thought it was fucking fantastic. Like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I've hyped it up like mad in my head now to hear the whole thing and just hear how it flows from track to track. Do you know what I mean? But one thing that but one thing that really caught my attention with this one is the artwork as well. The artwork on the Splitting Tongues EP is fucking fantastic. Who did you get to put that together?
Sorry, that big gulp of beer there. Yeah, we got Sarah from Black Fever Art. My wife, she does all the type of stuff, and we sat down together and we discussed the themes of the songs and kind of everything in between and what would work best as a kind of image to go along with it. And I gave her my ideas, and she came back to me with an hour of a sketch and just showed me exactly what she thought, and I literally couldn't put into words what I wanted to say, and she came back with a draw, and I was like, yep, that is exactly what we as a band would love. And it's amazing. Yeah, I thought it was cool.
Yeah, it's so fucking good. Like, you know what I mean? Between the head and just the jaw and the mouth over on top of it, like, it's savage. It's got like that would look great, I think, on like a small like 12-inch vinyl as well, like on a single or something. Do you know what I mean? It looks like something that should be printed on something matted, like, do you know what I mean? It looks fucking unreal. But as well as that, like, it's been released through 2 different labels. You've decided to go with the CD with Curse Monk and with the cassette with Fomorian Hate. Was that an intentional thing to go two separate routes with it, or did things just kind of fall that way, or what was the story there?
Yeah, I think it was intentional, but it was also kind of slightly by accident as well. Like when we recorded the tracks, we were kind of thinking, what do we want to do with the release, and how we kind of want to put it out. And I think it was around that time actually yourself had messaged me to say around the Fomorian Hate stuff and to check out the label. And I'd heard about it previously, and I checked out one of the Gallic releases I think that came out on it. And I really liked it, and I kind of thought it fit very well with what we were looking to do. And I liked the idea as well of doing kind of limited tape release for it. So that was kind of how I discovered that, and just reached out to Dave, and he was interested in doing it. So that worked out well. And then we actually played our first, and to date, the only gig we've managed to do with the whole coronavirus thing. We played with a band called Tombs. And we got chatting to them. They really enjoyed our set, and they were saying, what are we doing kind of next release wise? And we were explaining about the EP and stuff. And then afterwards I just got chatting to Alex, the singer and guitar player, and I was saying to him, like, how did they find working with Curse Monk on their album, because they just released one at the same time, and he said it was fantastic. So I just reached out to Roger at Curse Monk and sent him the 4 tracks and said, look, would you be interested in working with us? What do you think of the release? And he was delighted. He was like, yeah, I'm more than happy to do it. So between the two of them, I just suggested that Fomorian Hate handle the tape side of things, and Curse Monk do the CD, rather than try and do, say, 2 tapes or 2 CDs or whatever. Because it just made a bit more sense. Like, each label obviously has its own kind of following, so it was an opportunity to reach a bigger audience as well. Given that when we can't gig and stuff like that, and we're relying a lot more on kind of word of mouth and people passing it around, obviously the more people we can get it to, the better. So it worked out well.
Yeah, and it's been getting great traction. Like we said at the start, it just dropped today, and like I'm seeing it everywhere and anywhere online. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it really is going down well with people. Do you know what I mean? It's being shared like mad and stuff like that. And I think a big part of it is, obviously, music aside and everything like that, is the fact that, like, you've gone to the 2 labels and everything like that. The fact that you've split the release between 2 labels as well, it kind of like symbolizes your sound a little bit. Like, do you get me? Like, do you know what I mean? There's elements of it where, like, there's elements of your music and stuff like that that's very representative of what a lot of the Curse Monk stuff would be. And in the same vein, like, a lot of the Fomorian Hate releases too, you'd be in very similar vein to those as well. Do you know what I mean?
And that's how we kind of decided on the tape and CD side of things as well, because obviously we've got that black metal kind of element to the sound, and with a lot of the imagery, and that's kind of typically more associated with the kind of tape side of things. So we said Dave and Fomorian Hate would be a very good kind of vehicle to get that side of things out and promote it to that audience. Whereas Curse Monk put out a lot more of the kind of sludgier side of things, which is obviously the second big element in our sound. So again, it kind of fit naturally between doing the tape through a kind of a more black metal means, and then the CD for the kind of the sludgier genres. So yeah, that was kind of the deliberate thought out part of it, I suppose.
Yeah, I was like thinking about that last night, because like because of the fact that I had to go towards you to re-record this one over my fuck up in the tech side of things, which we were giving away like one of the tapes at the moment and everything this, and weird timing, the fella who actually invented the cassette passed away yesterday as well, and I saw that and I was just like, I jinxed it now. That's the divine intervention there. Like,
that's crazy.
Madness, like, do you know what I mean? At 94 years of age as well, I thought, Jesus Christ, like, do you know what I mean? But another thing as well is touched on the track Fractured as well. He released a lyric video for that. What was that something that just kind of fell into place? Did the opportunity arise to do that, or were you consciously like, we need to put out a video of some form before releasing the EP in full?
Yeah, we're kind of saying, with the lack of gigs and stuff like that, we're trying to think of ways we can kind of push the release a bit more in terms of promo. Because obviously normally you'd do a release and you'd have a release gig, and you might be doing some other support slots and stuff around the place. So it was really just the only option. And we were saying, would we do kind of a live video or something like that? We were maybe going to go to a studio and do a live video. But obviously with the restrictions and stuff like that, that kind of put a stop to that. So we really just said, well, do we leave it and not do anything, and then risk not getting the same level of exposure from it and things like that? And then Roger from Curse Monk said to us that we were getting a feature with Cult Nation. So we said that would be the perfect kind of motivation to get something done. So we just said a lyric video would probably be the best thing to do, given there's not much, like we couldn't go to anywhere else to do a live video or anything like that. So we just said, yeah, it's the best option.
And we were talking there last week after we wrapped up the interview. We were talking a little bit about like the live streams that the boys in the Siege of Limerick had done and stuff like that. They're saying there was whispers and stuff today in the news saying that like restrictions might like ease somewhat like late April, early May. Do you think that'd be something you'd go about doing, considering live music probably won't be back really in the regular capacity for another 6 months? But like, would you consider doing the live streaming in some form or another?
I'd love to do one, yeah, absolutely. If John would have us.
Yeah, because that's something just with your imagery and stuff like that. That seems like it would really suit you. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, because like you said, you have all that money invested, like in the lighting and stuff like that. You know.
Yeah, like it's obviously one of the things that I'd really be looking to do if we can. As I said, if John would have us down for something in Limerick, we'd love to do it. Or, you know, if there's something going on up in Dublin or, you know, anywhere really, so long as restrictions ease enough to do it, I'd love to. I think we're all dying to get back to gigging. So.
Oh, that's it. And it just seems like you think you're getting closer to it and everything like that. And then every day there's something new. Then, you know what I mean? It's been pushed back to this date or this or whatever. Like there's going to be an opportunity for live music to come back in the UK now. What's it, after June 21st, I think?
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
Would you consider going abroad to play gigs? That's one thing now that I'm wondering if bands... I know now with Brexit and stuff, it's a lot harder, but like, let's say if those travel visas weren't a thing, would you have considered going abroad to gig, considering there's no gigs here at the moment? Because I've asked a few people that, and people seem to be very 50-50 on it, like, do you know what I mean?
I think it all depends on what the situation is with the restrictions coming back into the country. Like, I mean, all of us are working full-time jobs, so it's not as if we can just go out, fly over to play one weekend gig, come back and have to spend 2 weeks quarantine and, you know, as a mandatory quarantine type of thing. So it really just depends on how that situation pans out. You know, like, it's not worth your investment to take time off work, to fly away, to play one show, to come back and have to sit in your bedroom for 2 weeks.
No, that's it. Like, because I've
on, like, with the experience of like being in a younger band, you can do them things and afford to, like, you know, if this was going on back then, we could like leave and come back for 2 weeks and like not have to do anything for 2 weeks. It wouldn't matter. But at this stage of the game, like, you really can't afford to come back from your country and take 2 weeks off to do nothing. Doesn't really work.
As much as we may all like to do that, unfortunately,
I'd fucking love to do nothing for 2 weeks.
That's been the worst for it. Like,
it's definitely on the cards for the future. Like, as soon as the restrictions ease up enough to be able to get out of the country, you know, do whatever shows that we can do and come back, it's definitely the first thing we're going to look at doing. You know, obviously we'll look to do some sort of Irish shows to mark the release and stuff like that. But as soon as we can, it's get abroad and try and get some festivals and some tours and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, see, that's the thing now. Like we were saying there on the last time we were chatting, like you had like such unfortunate luck at that. You got one gig under your belts, like under the new band and stuff like that, and then literally the lockdown came down on top of all of us. Like, do you know what I mean? But like, have you been approached by anyone about anything like that? Any future gigs or anything like that? Has anyone been approaching anyone really? Like, do you know what I mean? I've heard whispers here and there, but like, I don't think there's anything concrete yet. Like, do you know what I mean? Have you been approached about anything after like post lockdown?
Yeah, like there's a couple of things that we've been looking at doing. Obviously, I think I mentioned it the last time, like, it really depends on what way the restrictions are lifted and what form gigs come back in. Like things like the Siege of Limerick obviously are a high priority on the list, but whether, you know, 200, 300, 400 capacity venues will be allowed to open back up to full capacity or not, I'm not really sure. So it's really, I suppose, it's all just ideas at this point, and putting out feelers. So we've been in touch with a couple of promoters and stuff like that to line stuff up. But again, even from their point of view, they're not sure when or how things will come back. So it's really just playing the waiting game to see later in the year what the story is. If there's the vaccine is rolled out quick enough and things can come back sooner, then obviously it puts everything into full speed ahead. But if not, it's just playing the waiting game and try and keep ourselves kind of, you know, fresh and ready to go. So as soon as things come back, we can take any opportunity we can get.
And have you looked into anything like plan wise now for like Splitting Tongues is out today and everything like that? So obviously, you know, we kind of let that sit with people for a few months. But have you looked into doing anything else in like release wise in the future? Are we due for like a split? Like we talked a little bit about that last week. Have you Have you approached anyone about doing anything like that, or are there shirts on the way or anything like that at all?
Yeah, there'll be merch coming. Hopefully sooner rather than later. Again, it's just trying to judge the interest and things like that. As I said, given we're not gigging, and that's where you'd normally sell a good bit of the merch. But that'll be coming soon enough, hopefully. In terms of the next release and the splits and things like that, we've got some tracks written and we're kind of demoing a couple of ideas back and forth. But it's still early days yet. We don't really know whether it'll take a form of an album or maybe another EP. We've talked with a couple of friends' bands around doing maybe a split or something like that with them. But there's nothing kind of concrete yet. We're still very early days in it.
Okay, cool. And like, we'll get back to the EP and stuff like that. 1 second now. Okay. Is it like? Do you either of you have like is there like a general favorite track from the EP? Is there one that you'd recommend listening to? Or well, of course you'd recommend listening to the entire EP now. But like, is there a standout track from it for either of you?
Yeah.
First.
Go on, Mark. You can fire ahead there.
No, Dave. No, go on. I will. Let me see. I don't know. It's just one of them things where it depends what kind of mood you're in. But I tend to always go for the first track. Really, I think Throwing the Traitors is just always a kind of a fast kick in the fucking mouth. Really, you know, it's just fast and gets you where you want to go. And then, yeah, I don't know. That seems to be my go-to track anyway. But I just said there, Emmett, the whole album as a whole is amazing. So listen to all of it. But the first song is probably my favorite one.
Yeah, I'd probably be the same. I think Throwing the Traitors definitely showcases a good bit of the band's ability, I suppose. I think Fracture as well is another good one. It's definitely more the black metal sound. But again, it still has a kind of a heavy kind of sludge influence to it. So it's a little bit of everything in that as well. I think that the key thing is like none of the tracks sound out of place. They all sound like they belong on the one thing, even though they all kind of sound a little bit different. And there's some more kind of death metal influences on some tracks, some kind of grindcore, thrashier elements of others. But they all kind of sound like they belong on the one EP.
Well, that's it. There's a lot of diversity on the EP there, so you kind of get a bit of everything you're kind of looking for if you're into it. So yeah, it's great. Happy with it.
That's the job. I'm just after getting like a notification here from Zoom that like I forgot that there's like a cap time wise now on these, so I'm gonna have to wrap it up a small bit. But one thing that I've been asking people like mad now as well, and I think this is kind of nice enough question to like wrap things up on, is what have you been listening to the most during lockdown? Is there a particular album, like a new release that you've been listening to? Like, Matt, have you gone back to
My Own Thoughts?
Oh man, yeah, podcasts, and probably just a lot of Dragged into Sunlight and Skinless is one of the two of the main things that's keeping me sane. Podcasts, Dragged into Sunlight, Dragged into Sunlight and Skinless are the main things on my rotation at the moment.
Yeah, I think for me the latest Ulcerate album is definitely a high up on the list one. Stare into Death and Be Still. I think that came out last year and it's just phenomenal. I think from a songwriting point of view, that's definitely a big influence on what I'm kind of writing nowadays, and kind of what's going into the next batch of songs. I don't know what else I've really been listening to.
See, I'm too fucking ignorant to listen to anything new.
Mark is stuck on Slayer in 1986.
I fucking am too, yeah.
I suppose it's kind of hard to pick out, I suppose, what you'd listen to, every day. Like the ones that stick in my head would be obviously the Ulcerate one. I'd be a big Dragged into Sunlight fan as well. I've been enjoying the new Anil Nathrak stuff that came out again. I think it came out last year.
I think that was summer last year. I think it was. That was a great album. Yeah.
I'd be a big fan of them now. Actually, I was lucky enough I got to play with them a couple of times in other bands that I was in. I think Cold War played with them in Czech Republic, and then Wound Upon Wound played with them in Dublin, I think, one of the times. And they're just phenomenal. Like they're great lads, but they're also absolutely phenomenal live. Like they just kick the head off you. Like it's brilliant.
The new I Hate God is out tomorrow. I think it's gonna be great. think.
Yeah, but look forward to that one now as well. I'm absolutely raging over the Zoom thing. I didn't know this was a thing that you only got like 40 minutes on it as a go. So my apologies again, lads, now because there's something running the way. But at least this one's recorded. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no losing this one now. There's no redoing it. This one's in the
we
can.
believe it when we see it.
Yeah. And you know something? Out of total fear now after the last time, I'm going to actually sit down and edit this like immediately after we like wrap this up. And I'll just publish it tonight, because if I leave that on the long finger and something happens now, there's no way I could consciously go to you and be like, lads, we have to do it a third time or something now.
You could probably just interview yourself at that point. And give the
Literally, yeah. Honest to fucking God, like, do you know what I mean? No, but genuinely, lads, I have to fucking extend a sincere thank you for jumping on again for a second time and all that type of crack, do you know what I mean? And in fairness, I wasn't messing last week and I said it. When the real world opens up and gigs are a thing again, if you see me inside in Dolan's or you see me up in Dublin or something like that, don't be afraid to come up and catch a hold of me by the ear, and I'll sort you out with a few pints for hopping on and stuff like that. 2 pints each now since he hopped on twice, like, do you know what I mean?
No worries, man. Thanks a mil for having us.
Yeah,
Not a bother.
you.
Not a bother. Looking forward to listening to the EP now once it lands early next week as well now. But if anyone listening home wants to check it out, you can find CDs there on Curse Smoke Records. Few tapes are made over at Fomorian Hate. And do you have it up for download on your Bandcamp, or do you have to go to a label to find a place to stream it?
I suppose the best way to do it at the moment is to get it through the labels, because obviously you'll get 2 for 1. You'll get a physical copy and the download as well. We have it up on our own Bandcamp, and it's up on all the other streaming platforms, so Spotify, Apple Music, etc. You can find it on all of them.
Okay, perfect stuff, lads. Thanks very much for hopping on the podcast.
No
worries. Thanks a mil.
So yeah, that was my interview with the lads from Fraught. Again, I want to extend a sincere thank you to the lads for hopping on not once but twice over my tech fuck up. But sure, look, like I said, it has to happen once for me to know not to do it again. And like we said several times throughout the interview there, lads, if you want to hear the new EP, Splitting Tongues in full, you can stream it wherever you stream your music from. You can also buy CD copies of the EP on Curse Smoke Records, and you can buy one of the few remaining cassette copies over at Fomorian Hate Records also. As well as that, you can win yourself a free copy of the EP by heading on over to the social media accounts for From the Depths, both on Facebook at From the Depths Metal Radio and on Instagram at From the Depths Metal. And all you have to do is like, share, comment and tag us, and you can win yourself a free copy of the Fraught EP, Splitting Tongues. So yeah, that is pretty much it from us here at From the Depths for another week. I want to extend a sincere thank you again to the lads for hopping on to the podcast, and I want to extend a sincere thank you to you guys at home for checking out the podcast. My apologies if this episode was a little bit late out, but sure, look, these things happen. And I'll be back with you for another podcast. Going to have a very, very special guest on next week's show. I'm not going to spoil that until it's out. It should make for some very, very funny listening. Anyways, lads, for another week, this is Emmett signing off. Be sure to check out the Splitting Tongues EP by the lads in Fraught. Hop on over to their social media accounts. Give them a like, give them a share, give them a follow, all of that crack. And I will see you this time next week for another episode of the From the Depths podcast. And as well as that, I'll see you on Wednesday over on Wired 99.9 FM for another episode of From the Depths. Good night. God bless, lads.